Hello and welcome to another episode of Colorado Politicking. I'm your host, Pat Poblete, and we're really going to be focusing this week on kind of a bombshell story that's been the center of the political universe here in the United States. We're going to try and center it in Colorado for you. And this is, of course, the news that the U.S. Supreme Court is preparing to overturn its decisions in two landmark cases that outline the constitutional right to an abortion, according to a leaked version of a draft of that majority opinion. Now, we're going to dive into the Colorado aspects of this, particularly the reaction we got here in the state. But to kick things off, we're going to start off with Chief Legislative Reporter Marianne Goodland. And Marianne, what I think would be helpful is to kind of set the table with what the state of abortion access is here in Colorado.
Good morning. Abortion has been legal in the state of Colorado since 1967. That is when former state representative and then Governor Dick Lamb ran a bill, he was in the state house, to legalize abortion. Now, the thing about that 67 law is it was a very limited law. You could only get an abortion in cases of rape, incest, fetal abnormality, or for the health of the mother. In addition to that, you had to get permission from your husband if you were married, and it had to be approved by a 3-doctor panel. So this was not a wide open door to abortion access in Colorado by any stretch. Roe v. Wade changed that in 1973 when it became federal law. It became, it changed to the situation that we have now. So what happens if Roe v. Wade gets overturned in Colorado? We don't actually go back to that 1967 law, as it turns out, because earlier this year, Democrats in the state legislature ran what's known as the Reproductive Health Equity Act. And under that law, it affirms the right to an abortion, no restrictions like what was in that 1967 law. And that's really the big thing that's going to, that Roe v. Wade, overturning Roe v. Wade would change. It becomes a state's decision. Colorado is one of the few states in this part of the country. We're surrounded by states that have either outright abortion bans or what's known as trigger laws, which says if Roe v. Wade is overturned, then those states' bans on abortions would go into effect. We're already seeing some of that with people coming up from other states where those abortion bans have gone into effect, and they're coming here to get those procedures. I talked to the head of Planned Parenthood, and where they're showing up mostly is down in Colorado Springs.
Thank you, Marianne, for that good table setter so that we understand kind of the state of play here. And I want to go from Marianne to Colorado Politics Managing Editor Luige Del Puerto. Now, Luigi, along with a couple other reporters, you've really been spearheading our coverage of this issue this week. So I want to kick it over to you and kind of have a look at the political sphere. What has the reaction been here in Colorado?
Thank you for that, Pat. The political reaction is exactly how we expected it. Progressives decry the points, the arguments raised by Justice Alito in this draft opinion. Conservatives kind of adopted a more wait and see attitude. Clearly what they see is an opportunity to restrict abortion because the fight, as Marianne has noted, is shifting to the states and away from the federal government. Marianne mentioned the state statute that was just signed into law. It enshrines the right on an abortion. The governor and Democrats immediately pointed to that and said, look, we will not allow any effort to roll back abortion rights in the state. I do want to mention just a couple of very quick things. If the court indeed strikes Roe v. Wade, the ruling won't immediately change the practical realities on the ground, particularly in states like Colorado that expressly allow for abortion procedures. Second, as everybody's noted, this potential ruling shifts the fight to the states. In red states, most of the fight will likely occur in the state legislatures, where we can expect to see Republicans pass all kinds of laws restricting abortion. And in progressive states, the fight likely will occur at the ballot box, where anti-abortion advocates will try and challenge statutes permitting abortion. Just one final point. We should expect to see that ballot box fight in Colorado, maybe even as early as this November. I'm very curious to see the contours of that measure, if there is going to be one. Are we going to see another personhood amendment, a heartbeat amendment, or are we going to see something along the lines of banning late-term abortion? I don't candidly, I don't see Colorado's voters going for a heartbeat measure or something similar, meaning to prohibit, an abortion as soon as a heartbeat is detected. It would seem to be more strategic for the conservative right to go for something like a ban on late-term abortion.
Well, thank you, Luigi, for that. We will be keeping a lookout for further coverage of this, which I know you'll be spearheading as our fearless leader. But earlier, Luigi, I said you were partially leading this because I also have to give a tremendous amount of credit to Gazette reporter Debbie Kelley, who is joining us here to round things out today. Now, Debbie, we've done a little bit of the groundwork in terms of what the state of play is here. We've talked a little bit about the political sphere, but obviously the political sphere is a pretty limited sphere. There's a lot outside of that. And you've been doing a really good job of kind of tracking reaction outside of that. So I'm just going to open up the floor to you. Broadly, what have you been seeing this week?
Sure, Pat. Thank you. Thanks for having me. So this is an emotional issue. It's highly contentious. But in interviewing several university professors and religious groups and pastors of churches this week, I discovered that while it's a divisive issue, this news this week seems to be bridging and bringing people together on both sides to vow to work harder to for their side, for their cause. And they're going, the people who oppose abortion are going to do that by focusing on the mother more. They say they're criticized a lot for just focusing on the baby. So they want to turn their attention to the moms, the families, giving support. For instance, there's a new maternity house being built in Colorado Springs for pregnant women. So things like that they're going to do. I wrote 3 stories this week, and my favorite was a whodunit, a UCCS professor talking about speculation. There's lots of speculation on who orchestrated the leak and why. And so he talked about that, and it turned out to be a reader's favorite too. So we'll be continuing to follow this story. Thank you.
And thank you, Debbie. And you can read all of her coverage on coloradopolitics.com. If you're watching us there, it'll be directly below right there. If not, you can go to the Gazette's website, find Debbie Kelley's work. It really is fantastic. There's really informative stuff in there. But for Debbie, for Luigi, and for Marianne, who joined us at the beginning, I've been Pat. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and we will see you again next week.